The Boy Who Left by Evan True. Chapter 1. The Airport. It was a cold winter morning in Colorado. Sebastian and his mother were driving to the airport, where Sebastian would fly on his own for the first time. For over an hour, Sebastian had been staring out the car window, lost in thought, before his mother broke the silence. "Sebastian, are you okay?" she asked gently. "I'm fine," he replied, hesitating. "I haven't seen Dad for 2 years. Do you think I'll like his new wife?" "Honey, it's going to be great. It's Christmas, and I think you need to give her a chance." His mother reassured him, her voice soft and calm. "You know we both love you. Your dad and I just didn't work out." Sebastian's mother glanced over at him with sympathy in her eyes. "We're here. Let's get your things and find the airport aide." They grabbed Sebastian's luggage, headed over to the airport, where they were supposed to meet the person who would help guide him to his gate. "Hi, are you Ben?" Sebastian's mother asked, spotting the airport assistant. "Yes, I am, and you must be Sebastian and his lovely mother." Ben replied with a smile. Marie handed Ben Sebastian's ticket, along with instructions to ensure her son found his gate and felt safe. After all, this was his first time flying alone. With a big hug, a kiss on the cheek, and a heartfelt goodbye, Sebastian headed toward the escalator and into the line for security. His stomach tightened. He had always been nervous about going through security. He worried he'd accidentally packed something he shouldn't have, even though he checked his bag twice before leaving home. And now, he was with a stranger, flying to meet another stranger, his stepmother. The line moved quickly, and soon it was his turn. "Next," called the TSA agent. "I need your ticket and identification, please." Sebastian handed over the items. "Okay, head over to the conveyor belt, put your belongings in the bins, and send them through the x-ray machine." Ben helped Sebastian place his things on the belt. The boy joined the line for the walk-through x-ray machine, his least favorite part of the process. The machine always made him feel uneasy. "Next," said the TSA agent, gesturing toward the machine. Sebastian stepped forward, mimicking the stick figure instructions by raising his hands in the air. He closed his eyes, grit his teeth, and waited for the machine as it whirred to life, scanning him from head to toe. After a few moments, Sebastian stood still, unaware that the scan had already finished. He waited longer than necessary, but something felt off. The unusual noise of the airport. The hustle, the bustle, the travelers, the agents yelling instructions, it had all disappeared. The silence was eerie. Sebastian slowly opened his eyes. The sight before him sent chills through his body. The airport was empty. Where the bustling international terminal had once been, there was now only a ghostly silence. Not a single person was in sight. Frozen in shock, he ran toward the nearest exit, only to find that it was locked. Outside, it was now dark, though it had been morning just moments before. Panic rose in his chest as he retraced his steps back through security, hoping to find someone, anyone. As Sebastian wandered through the empty airport, only the automatic voice on the intercom broke the silence. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he spotted a sign for gate D21, his gate. He turned toward it and then heard it, the sound of a little girl crying. He stopped in his tracks, his heart pounding in his chest. For a moment he hesitated, unsure of what to do, but then, driven by curiosity and concern, he hurried toward the sound. Chapter 2. The Girl. Sebastian ran toward the sound of crying, frantically searching for the source. He spotted her. Long brown hair, a white dress. She looked younger than Sebastian, sitting alone in the chairs by gate D21. He paused for a moment, doubt creeping in. "I've seen too many movies. This feels off," he muttered to himself. Shaking his head, he pushed the thought away. "That's stupid. This girl is lost, and I need help." Cautiously, he approached her. "Hello?" he called out gently, trying to get her attention. "Hello, are you okay?" The girl slowly lifted her head, her eyes meeting Sebastian's. "Hello," she muttered in a shaky voice. "Are you real?" Sebastian, startled by the question, replied, Yes, I am. Are you? He hesitated for a moment before continuing. Something weird happened to me. I went through security and then everyone disappeared and I don't... Stop, you're scaring me, the girl interrupted, her voice trembling. I'm sorry, Sebastian said quickly, realizing how frantic he must sound. I'm probably not helping, am I? It's okay. It's scary in here, she replied softly. Sebastian sat down beside her, and the weight of everything finally crashed down on him. Overwhelmed, tears welled up in his eyes, and soon he was crying, his words coming out in broken sobs. I'll never see my mom again. The girl watched quietly as he struggled to speak through his deep breaths and tears. She had stopped crying the moment he sat next to her. Now she found herself more worried about Sebastian than her own fear of being lost in this strange, empty world. Several minutes passed, and Sebastian, exhausted from the emotional toll of the day, fell asleep. Suddenly, a loud crashing sound jarred him awake. Whoa, what happened? He exclaimed, his heart racing. He looked around for the girl and saw her hiding under the chairs in the row behind him. Turning his attention to where the sound had come from, he scanned the area but couldn't see anything that might have caused such a loud noise. What happened? He asked her, his voice still shaky. I didn't see it, she replied, crawling out from under the chairs. I was just about to fall asleep when I heard the sound. After waiting in silence to see if the noise would happen again, the two children decided to explore the area, hoping to discover what had caused the ear-piercing crash. Come with me, Sebastian said, offering his hand. The girl stood up, grabbed his arm, and together they left gate D21 behind. As they walked, Sebastian asked, How long have you been here? I don't know, I can't remember. It's been a while, I think, she answered hesitantly. Do you have a family, he asked. I have a dad and an older brother. My mom died in a car crash, she said quietly. I can't remember my parents' names, but my brother's name is Gage. Sebastian's heart sank at her words. He began to worry that he might forget his own family too. I'm sorry you can't remember your family's name, Sebastian said softly. I hope I don't forget my mom's. They continued walking in the silence until they reached a new corridor. Suddenly, the faint sound of running water echoed through the empty space. Do you hear that? Sebastian whispered. Is that water? The sound grew louder as they ventured further into the dark hallway. As they emerged into a new area, they found a pool, complete with all its markings and a central slide, right in the middle of the airport. Sebastian stared at the scene, bewildered. Do airports normally have pools in them? Chapter 3. The Memories. As they approached the pool, the sharp smell of chlorine filled the air. I don't think airports usually have pools, the girl said. I don't think so either, Sebastian replied. He paused for a moment, then realized something. Hey, what's your name? I just realized I never asked. Clarity, she answered softly. That's a nice name, Sebastian said with a smile, though his mind was elsewhere. The pool reminded him of his childhood, specifically the times he spent with his dad at the local pool when he was younger. He didn't like those memories. He brought up feelings he'd rather forget. I think we should probably leave this area, he suggested, his voice tinged with unease. Let's go this way, Clarity said eagerly, as if she hadn't noticed his discomfort. As they walked, the faint sound of a TV grew louder in the distance. What's that? Sebastian asked, his curiosity piqued. It sounds like a TV playing cartoons, Clarity replied, her voice oddly cheerful. Let's go check it out, she said, glancing at Sebastian, her eyes bright with a strange familiarity. Sebastian felt the knot tighten in his stomach. Something about the way Clarity acted seemed off, like she knew more than she was letting on. He started to wonder if she had been here before, if this place was familiar to her in some unsettling way. They entered the room, and the moment they crossed the threshold, Sebastian froze. His heart pounded in his chest, harder and faster than it ever had before. They had just walked into his old living room, The living room of his childhood home. The one where his mom and dad used to live together. The one where arguments were constant, where his dad left one day and never came back. The house of his nightmares. "I can't go in," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Why not?" Clarity asked, her voice soft but inquisitive. "This place isn't real. This is a dream. I need to wake up." Panic surged through Sebastian as he desperately tried to convince himself this wasn't happening. Frantically, he began hitting and slapping his face, hoping to wake himself up from what he had sure had to be a nightmare. But nothing worked. The harder he tried, the more the panic grew inside him. His breathing quickened, his body shaking uncontrollably, his face flushed red as the weight of all that had pressed down on him. He screamed, his voice filled with fear, and then everything went black. The overwhelming stress finally took a toll. Sebastian fainted. When he began to wake, a strange, low rumbling sound filled the air. It was as if the very hallway they had walked through was being crushed under the weight of something enormous. "Clarity?" Sebastian called out, his voice hoarse as he looked around the room, but she was nowhere to be seen. "Clarity!" he shouted again, panic rising as he scanned the room. Then he walked out into the hallway. He saw her standing there, but something was different. Something was terribly wrong. There was something behind her. He gasped. "No," he said under his breath. The sound, the creature making the noise. It was her. Chapter 4. The Monster. "What is that?" Sebastian muttered to himself, terror rising in his chest. Was she trying to lure me here? Was she the one who created the pool in my old living room? His thoughts swirled in confusion, fear, anger. How could he have trusted Clarity? She seemed so innocent, so lost, just like him, but now it felt like a lie, a cruel deception that led him straight into danger. The betrayal stung deep, twisting in his chest like a knife. It reminded him of his dad, how he had trusted him too, believed in him, only for his dad to walk out and never come back. That same hollow ache was now back, pounding in his heart. How could someone he relied on so easily lead him to ruin? First his dad, now Clarity. He had trusted them both, and both had left him feeling abandoned, used, and alone. How could he have followed her, only for it to lead him here, straight to what felt like certain death? The creature before him was massive. Its skin was a sickly gray black, with eerie purple spines protruding from its legs. 4 legs, or at least 4 that he could see. The body seemed to meld into the hallway, filling it completely as it absorbed everything in its path. The benches, the signs, nothing was safe. On one of its legs, misty tendrils, a dress hung. The dress was old, its once white fabric stained with grime, especially around the frayed hem, as it had been there for ages. The creature's form shifted, the dress momentarily taking the shape of a little girl, Clarity, before dissolving back into the formless mist. It wasn't a girl at all. It was a monster. The puppet master moved towards Sebastian with terrifying speed, its limbs stretching and bending unnaturally. The hallway seemed to bend with its every move, the walls groaning under its pressure. But Sebastian remained frozen, his body locked in place, still struggling to comprehend the nightmare unfolding before him. "What is that thing? I need to go, but I can't move," he whispered in disbelief. His legs refused to obey him. The fear was paralyzing, holding him captive even as his mind screamed for escape. The black mist swirling around the creature began to seep into the hallway, spreading out like a creeping shadow, slithering toward him with a deadly purpose. Suddenly, a voice rang out from behind him, breaking through his frozen terror. "Go!" The command was sharp, urgent, and pierced through the fog in Sebastian's mind. It took him from his daze, and with a sudden jolt, Sebastian started to run. Chapter 5. The ending. It had been 2 years now. Sebastian kept track with a marker he found, making tallies on the wall of his new home. If it could ever be called that. The days blurred together in the endless, empty halls of the airport. He often thought about his mother, wondering if she was doing well. She was the one he missed the most. Her face, her voice. He clung to those memories, even as if they started to fade with time. Even as they started to fade with time. He had thought about leaving many times, but the thought of it filled him with an unbearable weight. He had tried, even gone as far to steal a knife from the TSA room where confiscated items were stored. Breaking into the room had been easy. He'd done it months after the encounter with the creature, the puppet master. But despite having the means, he couldn't summon the courage to follow through. The monster was still there, lurking in the dark corners of the strange, abandoned world. It hadn't given up on him, not yet. From time to time, it would return, trying to lure him back with memories that it twisted and brought to life. More cries, more tricks that echoed through the empty airport. But Sebastian knew better now. He didn't follow the cries of the little girl anymore. He wasn't fooled by the sweet sounds of his old home, his old life. Those memories were traps. They weren't real. And now, neither was he. The end. Welcome to Coffee Time, the internet show where three lifelong friends enjoy a cup of coffee as they talk about anything and everything, what the word says about it, and what the world says about it. Let's get brewing. I'm Evan. That's Ian. That's Andrew.
Hey.
Let's get into this discussion. Hello, hello.
Hey.
You just heard my story, and I'm going to have to make you'll hear the perfect story when you listen to this episode. I may have stumbled over my words a couple times. But you guys probably got the overall story of it.
Yeah, man.
Jeez. Nice work, Evan. That was good.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm snapping without making sound because it'll sound terrible on the microphone.
What was your favorite part of that lovely story?
Ian, you go first.
I kind of like that he didn't make it back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's different than a normal story.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Still alone.
Yeah. I liked it.
I really like Clarity as a character. Definitely allegorical and very interesting. Clarity is deceptive almost, and the memories are traps. It was a really, really cool concept.
Yeah. I was doing this and I'm like, man, I just need to keep making this. And then I ran out of time before recording to add more. But I also didn't want to add more because I didn't want it to be super long. But
it turned out well.
So you guys might get an extended version, just saying. Later.
Jeez, let's go.
Yeah. But anyways, let's start with this little loose leaf update.
Boom.
And then we're going to get into more stories. Ian and Andrew both have wrote a short story. That's kind of the premise of this episode. We're just going to tell stories. Yes. And then at the end, we're going to cap it all off with, the title of this episode is Ghosts. So we're telling kind of ghost stories. Mine was more, not really a ghost story, but it kind of fits in the realm of that.
Qualifies.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, barely, but it's there.
Suspenseful.
Suspenseful, maybe.
This is releasing in spooky
emotional
season, guys, which is why we are wearing our costumes here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot to mention that. You probably have noticed the snake around my head because I'm Mandusa. Mandusa.
It's beautiful.
Because I'm, yeah. Thank you. But anyways, quick update from me, I guess. Guys, I'm going to be honest with you. My life's a little boring, unfortunately. But I was going to say, writing this story was something that was interesting because I've always had some good ideas in my head, but I never felt qualified enough to write them down. And so doing this little exercise for this episode maybe had stirred a little passion for that. So you might see
Ooh.
more of this.
That's awesome.
Sweet.
So-
That's awesome, dude. Yeah.
So that's my little loose leaf update.
Nice.
Kind of where I'm at, I guess, where I'm feeling a little directed. So
Love it.
I'm glad to hear that, though. It was really well written, like very narrative and illustrative as well. Words with pictures.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, it painted the world very clearly, which I liked.
The one critique that my sister gave it, that you should really develop the characters more. I'm like, I can't. It's like supposed to be short.
Yeah,
It's a short story.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to develop a character.
So-
in small.
But I didn't like in clarity. I didn't have like descriptions. It was just a girl, and so I added the long hair and dress and some things
Yeah.
that you could bring back later
Mhm.
in the story. So
Right.
Yeah.
Nice job. I like it a lot, though. It's fire.
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Ian? What's a good update for you?
My wife is out of town. She drove her to the airport this morning. She's back in Wyoming, so I
Wow.
have to spend this whole week all alone. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm so
I'm gonna be
sorry.
seeing Evan a lot and Emery a lot and my family a lot. So
That's good.
But it sucks. This is our first time a whole week apart from each other in a long time. It's been a while since we've taken a trip separate from each other, so
Mm-hmm.
it's not very fun. But I know she's gonna have a good time, and it'll give me some time to work on some stuff for the show and spend some time with family. So,
Yeah.
boom. Go ahead, Andrew.
Updates for me.
Yeah.
Evan.
I have updates.
I have updates. New iOS version. Evan gave me access to something incredible. You may have heard of FL Studio. It is a digital audio workstation, and it's top of the line. And he very graciously shared his, I don't know what you call it, registration key, login with me. And so now I have a copy
Yeah.
of FL Studio on my computer, and I am learning how to compose with an orchestra, because you can just download an orchestra and have a whole orchestra on your computer. And I can't stop talking about it because it's the coolest thing to me that, I don't know, the way all the instruments interact with one another. I'm really excited to learn more.
Mhm.
At this point, I know about nothing, but I do know a little bit about the piano, so that's a good start. Aside from that, things have been going on pretty much the same. Work and some sleep. It's great. I'm very thankful.
Nice.
So thank you, Evan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be clear, I'm not using it at the same time he's using it. He's using the keys by himself. For all you people thinking, I gifted it to him. So
Yeah. There you go.
I use GarageBand.
Mm-hmm.
So for anyone
you
out
very
there who's
much.
like, you know, why are you guys sharing keys? We're not. I promise. It was a gift.
It was a gift. Yeah.
So now we're going to get into what are we drinking today? And I will say that every time we make a drink, I drink the whole thing before we start recording. I don't know what it is. I have like a drink left, like one gulp.
One
One
sip.
Maybe.
sip.
It's more than a sip. It's probably like a mouthful, but
A gulp.
a gulp.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it, Evan. Good job.
It's called pumpkin fluff latte.
Mm.
And so what you do is you fill the like the inside of the cup. I was to say the outside of the cup, but the inside of the cup with marshmallow fluff, and then you do 2 tablespoons of pumpkin syrup, and then espresso or instant coffee or strong brewed coffee, and then milk, and yeah, it's just like a latte with pumpkin spice latte with marshmallow fluff, and it was pretty good.
It's super good.
Definitely giving me fall vibes.
Yes.
I just realized
Absolutely.
I cannot drink it because of my mask. I'm going to try and peel it back to get a slurp in.
Lift it up. So yeah, unlike
got it.
Andrew, I think I've drank all mine. I don't know about Ian.
Mine
Ian did
is-
an iced version. I did a hot version.
I've got a gulp left. I've got about
I've got a hot version. I've got a couple gulps.
Ooh, couple gulps, dang.
It's tasty
And-
stuff.
And full recipe is up with this episode, so go check that
Yeah.
out.
If you need the recipe, you'll see it on our socials.
Yep.
And maybe I have to look into it a little bit before I say anything. Maybe though, the website that hosts our podcast has like web pages that you can build. Like it'd be like buzzsprout.com/CoffeaTimeOfficial. But I think you can post stuff on there.
Sick.
So
That'd be sweet.
maybe look there. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It might happen. It might happen. Whatever.
Heck yeah. Check it out anyways, guys.
Check it out anyways. I don't think it's linked anywhere, but Ian can fix that and we can get it linked.
Yes, I can set that up.
Yeah, so let's get into the DIDAR. Ian, I think you're going to explain the DIDAR to us.
Yes. Pretty simple. Don't quote our teaching. We're human. We're flawed. So some things we say, especially if it's biblical, it might not line up. And we definitely don't mean to do that on purpose. It just happens. We're flawed. So don't quote our teaching. Fact check everything. If we do say something, you're like, that sounds a little fishy, go check it out. The resources are right there. You can download the Bible on your phone. And then do your own research. Yeah, wherever you need to do your research, do your research. Bible's the best place you can get it. So, boom, DIDAR. And by the way, guys, we always say DIDAR. We rarely explain what DIDAR means. It's DYDR. It's don't you dare rules.
Don't you dare rules.
Haven't messed me up last time. It's don't you dare.
Do your dang research.
Yeah, basically, guys.
Pretty much.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so I already explained kind of where we're going. Thank you, Ian.
Yes.
I appreciate you explaining those rules.
Thank you.
They are important. That we're kind of building our podcast off of that.
Yes.
So if you don't follow the rules, you probably might not enjoy this season of Coffee Time.
Right.
So now we're going to go into, we usually have this like content patio and we usually go through it pretty strictly. This episode's kind of an outlier, but we're still going to kind of follow some things. So we're going to go into steeping, which is going to be your guys' stories.
Woohoo.
The kind of concept of this episode, we were talking about ghosts and we were going to tell like real stories of ghosts. But honestly, I think we're going to save that for the end during our sipping section. And we're going to talk just kind of quickly and briefly about kind of where we stand on those kind of things. And I didn't prepare anybody for it. So you guys can be thinking about what you're going to say at the end.
Okay. I've got an idea.
But we're going to go, okay. But we're going to go into Ian's story.
Affidavit, Case 1436. Audio transcription from Francis Redacted of the Steam Rise County Police Department. Badge number redacted. For the sake of privacy on Mr. Francis's behalf, his full name, badge number, marital status, and any other personal information will be classified. Francis was only a couple hours away from finishing his 12-hour shift when he was called to a home on the night of November 13th. The call he received was from a dispatcher, explaining a woman on the phone was in distress and was trying her best to be silent. She said someone was trying to get in through her front door and she needed help. Before any more information could be gathered, the woman hung up the phone. Francis thought he knew what was going on, and this was possibly a domestic issue. Unfortunately, this wasn't too uncommon on the outskirts of town, so he put his vehicle in drive and stepped on the gas, headed to the address given to him by the dispatcher. Mr. Francis pulled up to the end of the drive without sirens, only red and blue lights. The November air was crisp and cold, biting your skin after only a few minutes in it. However, it never seemed to bother Mr. Francis. His boots hit the gravel and the shuffling and shifting rocks and sand under his feet were the only sounds that night. He gently closed his door and steadily but boldly made his way up to the modest wooden, oddly dark house. His boots thudded and creaked on the old wooden floorboards of the sun-baked front porch beneath him. His police accoutrements rattled and shinked as he adjusted his posture, reaching toward the door. He froze. He froze in fear. There was no door handle. He reached out and stumbled. He took a deep breath of the frigid air, stepping back and illuminating the doorway with his flashlight. His mouth opened as he started to breathe heavily. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. The door, from the doorknob down to the center of the door, was missing. It was as if someone had pushed hard enough to break and snap the wooden fibers of the door, bending the corner of the door until they pushed their way into the home. Francis was terrified, his hands growing increasingly shaky and his voice breaking and rattling as he called into the home. "Is anyone there? This is the SRPD. Are you okay?" He peered in through the broken door and into the dark, candle-lit living room. Seeing the room flipped on its side, the furniture was overturned and mangled, the walls scratched and split, and the once oak floors now stained deep crimson. Francis knew if the woman was still here, she could be hurt, or worse. He drew his gun and took another breath of cool air before pushing the door open and stepping into the home. His boots once again creaked along the floor. The crimson liquid seemed to leak from the sofa, and the candle barely flickered. Its tireless flame had been burning all day. He whipped the handgun up into the firing position, hearing a peculiar, unnerving, eerie sound that filled the empty silence of the home, like hundreds of hands tapping their fingernails on the floor, up the walls, and even across the ceiling of a room just down the hall. A sound that echoed and rumbled through the once humble home. Francis stepped further into the shambled room, making it halfway into the living room before a thick, slick, slimy, mucus-like liquid dripped and slopped off the ceiling, splatting on the ground, breaking the sporadic rhythm of the crawling taps. The tapping stopped, then it began again, and then stopped. It was as if every time Francis breathed in, it would scurry and scuttle around the room, and then as he breathed out, it stopped. Francis quickly crouched down and shut off his light, not taking his eyes off the door down the hall. The tapping started again, but quicker and more erratic. It started to click and squeal. It would hiss like a snake and bellow like an alligator. Francis's eyes adjusted to the dim, flickering flame once again. He looked toward the hall, searching for any sign of the woman. He then quickly snapped his gaze back behind him, staring through the broken corner of the door, leading back to the driveway where his car sat with its blue and red light still illuminating the high desert course front lawn. He quickly turned his eyes back to the hallway. A breeze brushed through the home. The candle went out. The tapping stopped. The door creaked. His boots squeaked. The hallway door opened. The tapping and crawling began again. Struggle ensued. He could do nothing. Francis wept. All was quiet. All was quiet. End of transcription. The moon falls as the sun rises, burning the dark and star-spotted skies, pushing the empty void back down to the border of the horizon. The false ocean and cotton-threaded vault rests in the peak of daylight once again, and Francis's car waits outside the wooden home. The blue and red lights no longer flashing, the sun shines down on the home so dark with its burden. All of his steps led him here, every step straight or crooked, every word and every look. He swam through the river of life that seems so unfair, yet here he lies. The things he unwillingly left behind will continue without him. The people he knew, the people he loved, and the ones that loved him will be forced to make a choice of advancement or stand still in the flow of white waters. He's left without choice as he meets something bigger than him and beyond his control. Yet the grass will grow, and the sun will rise, and the moon will fall, and the metal we use to construct our tools, to construct our walls will rust and degrade. Stars will be born, and the same stars will burn and fall into oblivion of self, becoming a black hole where burning light once beamed across the cosmos. And the far places we don't know of and have never seen will be and will continue to be, and the bugs will crawl in the dirt and die in the dirt, and we will love and we will hate and all return to the dirt. This will all happen without him. The end.
Bro, what?
Bravo.
That
Bravo.
was insane. Holy
Thank
cow.
you.
Man. So where do I start? The
poetry.
the poetry was phenomenal. You're just like
Thank
an
you.
excellent poet. It was so, and the way you describe the passing of day to night to day, like that is cool. That was
Thank
really
you.
well worded. It definitely gave me the image of like a time lapse maybe of the blue sky pushing back the night sky, which is just cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Question, what's the name of the story? Does it have a name or is it just a transcription?
Oh yeah. It's called 10,000 Legs by Ian True.
Ugh. That makes me uncomfortable.
Gross.
Yikes. Yeah. If I were to give like 3...
I liked the mystery.
Yeah. That was going to be one of the things I was going to say. The 3
Okay.
comments. One of them would be mystery. Because there's like a cloak of ambiguity.
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 This mask, I'm going to take this off when I do my story because it's really hard to breathe. A cloak of ambiguity. It makes it more unsettling. And it also forces you to get more involved with the story and interact with it in a way that you wouldn't if everything was handed to you. So I think that was great.
Thank you.
Evan, what are your thoughts?
Thanks.
I thought it was like one of your thoughts. But this is you had 3.
I do, but I interrupted you when I started them, and so I felt bad.
I have 3 thoughts.
that's okay.
The ambiguity. Evan, your turn.
The ambiguity.
The imagery. I felt like I was watching like a show.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was really nice. I liked it was like sad, but like beautiful that like everything continues
Mhm.
as it was without him.
Right. Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, what?
Yeah.
So it was like beautiful, but just like it was sad at the same time.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was going for.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a very beautiful picture, but it's also it's written in an unsettling way. It's like an unsettling reality.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, which is number 2. Number 3 is you wrote a story about a police officer, and I wrote a story about a detective, and there was no corroboration between the two of us.
No way.
Yeah. So
We didn't even know what each other's stories were until today, guys,
No.
by the way.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was really well done, though.
And yeah, it's just yeah. That was great.
Thank you.
Did you have a third one, Andrew?
That was it. It was the fact that I wrote a detective story. He wrote a police story.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Very good.
Well, with all that said, then, are you ready for your story, Andrew?
Let me take off this
Oh,
mask.
Ian, before Ian starts, Ian, you have to reveal your costume.
Oh, yeah.
People have been staring at it, but what are you?
I'm a dinosaur.
I can't see anything. I just hear, I'm a dinosaur. What is going on?
So,
Got the teeth up here.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, it looks good. You're missing your bottom jaw, but it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm laughing and I can't even see
The top of my
you.
head is a dinosaur.
That's a phenomenal sentence. The top of my head is a dinosaur.
Thank you.
Can we make a short story called that? The top of my
The
head.
top of my head is yeah.
It'll be the for next season when we come back to October.
Mm-hmm. I was Spider-Man. I cannot be Spider-Man anymore. It's too much. It's just too much.
Giving up.
Yeah, you can reveal your costume before your story since you've removed it.
Yes. We'll do that in post. See, I had this pair of scissors and I had talked with Ian and Evan and the plan was to cut it at some point, but I never managed to do that and I was like, I'm not keeping this thing on for any longer, so I was just going to cut a little slit where the lips were to talk through it and sip my drink, but maybe I can do that on another random episode. Just be on the lookout for Spider-Man. He might come back.
I'm kind of glad that you didn't because it's kind of a cool mask with out holes in it.
But when I hold it up like this, you'll see it when I post this. It looks like an Among Us character. Never mind. We'll cut that out. We'll cut that out. We'll cut that out. Okay. So I suppose I'll start my story?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please do.
Okay. The name of my story, Kyuryo. Office 1. Detective Sato pored over his desk, his face illuminated by the dim, flickering light. His office was filled with stacks of case files and photographs of missing persons, feeling increasingly burdensome. Recent reports suggested that prominent figures from the city's elite were vanishing. Government officials, businessmen and women, even children. Sato had not been given charge of this many disappearance cases before. Not alone, that is. Handled with a team, crimes as serious as large-scale drug shipments, gang activity, and even homicides could be managed with finesse and efficiency by the meritorious First Investigation Division. As a seasoned officer, Sato had learned to compartmentalize emotion and deal with the visceral sights he often encountered. Even Director Grant considered him tougher than most other officers in the FID. But disappearances were unfinished, unconcluded, loose-ended, unpredictable. Yet still, he had work to do. Investigation 1. The city was always quiet at this hour. The dim light of street lamps casting long, thin shadows on the rain-soaked pavement. Sato walked slowly through the low-hanging fog, with one hand in his left pocket and the other considering the grip of his handgun in its holster. His mind was heavy with the weight of the investigation. The names of the missing scrolled through his thoughts, every one of them high-ranking, wealthy, untouchable, but there were no ransom demands. Everyone was just gone. He stopped in front of an old building, its bricks worn and eroded by time. It was the last known location of Masuda, a city councilor. His eyes traced the outline of the elaborate entrance, but there was nothing unusual. Still, the place felt different. It was too still. Sato slowly crept up from the pavement to the front porch. He began to examine the scene carefully, often checking his surroundings. List 1. No lights were on inside or outside the home except for the street light at the end of the drive. The paint on the steps of the porch were chipped at the center of the top step. The door was locked, but the door handle had come loose from its fasteners. It was stuck partially rotated clockwise, the direction one would need to turn the handle to close and lock the door from the inside. The doormat was worn down by years of age, but a corner had been closed into the door. This would have required the door be shut forcefully or quickly. Sato pulled out his notebook and flipped through the scant details of the case, frowning. There were no suspects. There was no blackmail or coercion. The clues led nowhere, spiraling like a dead-end road. Yet something tugged at him, something elusive. He had this creeping sensation lately, as if he weren't the only one investigating. He gently snapped the notebook shut, the soft sound of the leather cover breaking the silence. He was being watched. Dreams. The feeling had started a week ago when he was first given charge of the investigation. He noticed a strange absence in his own reflection, just the faintest blur in the mirror. At first, he thought it was fatigue or the dull haze of the city lights. But the sensation grew stronger. Shadows seemed to stretch longer than they should, and in his sleep he began to dream of footsteps, always just behind him, a faint but ever-persistent tapping sound. On the porch, Sato strenuously tried to stifle a thought that would not be bound. In his most recent dream, his investigation had taken him to a dimly lit, impoverished part of the city. Those who littered the alley were a mix of sullen faces and murmured conversations. An unseemly well-dressed and dapper old man with a highly amicable look approached him, his voice barely a whisper, yet spoken with great clarity and a sense of authority. You were looking for answers, but some things are best left undisturbed. When Sato woke that morning, he had a dreadful inclination to believe that the old man in his dream was more than human. Hunted. As Sato examined his surroundings on the porch slyly, not letting his fear seep into his body language, he heard a faint tapping sound in the distance, immediately recognizable. These were the footsteps of 10.5 size leather dress shoes, the exact same style Sato wore. He recognized their sound on the pavement, almost exactly imitating his own footsteps and walking rhythm. He turned. There was no silhouette in sight. The streetlights did not illuminate any ongoer, and Sato did not dare give away his location by shining his flashlight. He blinked his eyes for a long moment. The sound stopped. Sato removed his own shoes. Walking away from the counselor's building gave rise to another thought that he did not want to face, especially not now. All of these disappearances were social elites, those whose wealth and influence were a shield in and of themselves. Beyond this was the connection to security resources and the first investigation department itself, weaving together a thick network of safety for those who were now gone, without a trace. He walked in his socks on the damp sidewalk back to his parked vehicle and drove home for the evening. Investigation number 2. It was more grim a day than any weary detective would hope for. The office windows matched the colors of the wall, the thick rain and fog outside clinging to the glass panes like magnets. A sign reads, Director Grant. Sir, you called for me. There was silence as Sato entered the room, and the door creaked to a close behind his heels. Stillness could not mask Director Grant's concern. His hands loosely swapped between an uncanny victim file and a pack of cigarettes. Grant lifted only his eyes, peering through his low glasses while he lit a smoke. He breathed in deeply and exhaled, blowing gray clouds around the temples of his round forehead. Sato recognized the man on the victim file. Another disappearance. Someone he knew personally. It was not until Sato's own forehead became clammy from fear that Grant spoke. This, he said gravely, not taking his gaze off Sato's face. He paused again and then whispered, You're still my best option. It was his father who had disappeared. This was a screwball in the series of disappearances. Social elites are reasonable targets. They have much to offer. Yet there was no ransom letters or anything of the sort. But for a local working-class man like Sato's father, perhaps no one was safe then. There was no pattern, no association, no correlation between any of the disappearances. And now it was personal. Despite Sato's strained relationship with his aged father, it was still his duty to care for him. Gently and reluctantly, Sato took the victim file from the director's hands and backed out of the office, leaving the door open as he strode quickly off. Home? Dusk, again. Pale streetlights and damp asphalt. The wheels of Sato's car were spinning quietly along the familiar county road lined by endless wheat fields and power lines. This was a place he had been many times before. Strangely enough, this being the first time he had driven on it in many years, it felt more familiar than ever. Sato could not bear to hear the radio any longer. He turned it off. It was not because the news outlets, police scanners, and public radios all made constant referral to the case that he could not solve. No. It was because not one of them did. Ever since he had begun the investigation, it seemed that no person, even the director or other officers, showed any concern or even recognition of the disappearances, except for when Sato received the victim files. They certainly could not be ignorant. Sato had no clue why the danger was not publicized. Perhaps to avoid panic or cause alert behavior. Rational thought had more and more been failing him. All of his tested methods were of no use in this case. Found. After several miles on the county road, Sato heard a faint tapping sound arise. His engine should not be making such a sound. It was a frequently serviced fleet vehicle. There were no other vehicles on the roads at this time of night, especially not in the county. Nor was there pavement for anyone to be walking along. The sound rose continuously. Breath escaped Sato when he realized. Size 10.5, leather dress shoes. Instantly, Sato's eyes darted out of the passenger and driver window. Nothing. He checked the side view, nothing behind him. Then he checked the rear view. In the distance, steadily gaining, was a tall form, shadowy, thin, and shrouded in the fog of the evening. It was a man. Was it? Each step it took gained 13 meters. No change of direction, just a steady forward onslaught. Each step echoed in Sato's head. Rationality left him entirely, and his right foot nearly snapped the gas pedal. He took an immediate, unpredictable right turn towards the highway, where he thought the presence of more streetlights and headlights would illuminate what was following him. He merged onto the 4-lane and sped down past many cars with his police lights and sirens activated. No one gave way. Glancing quickly again in his rearview mirror, he saw that the form was certainly of a man, not unlike himself, nearly 6 feet tall, well-dressed, and still walking patiently and steadily in pursuit of Sato's car. Every step was 27 meters of advance, and accelerating. Sato quickly took the exit to the police station. Within minutes he arrived. The silhouette had disappeared. He sprinted into the building and found it abandoned. No officers, no lights on, no presence at all. He heard the footsteps reverberating through the building, and each room he burst through became more and more claustrophobic. It was as if the city had lost its breath. A sign reads, Director Grant. There was a new case file on the desk. It was Sato's face. The footsteps stopped, and Sato turned dreadfully. A whisper entered his ears. Curio. Sato tried for words, but breath escaped him. He fell against the desk as the shadow approached him. I am nothing more than the sum of all that you have earned. The first investigation department mourned the untraceable disappearance of Sato for one day. The end.
Jeez. Bravo again.
Yeah, bravo again.
Thank you.
My goodness. I think we're in the wrong profession, my guys.
Potentially.
Guess we all need to pick up writing now.
I guess we all need to write books or something.
Wow, good job, Andrew. That was like spooky, like kind of like
Thank you.
feel the tension.
Yeah.
Good. That's what I was hoping
I love spoken word or whatever, because you can kind of create the characters in your own head and environment, you know?
Yeah,
Mhm.
like build it like a picture.
And when you were talking about like the shadow, like walking steadily. Like it didn't
Mhm.
sound like the figure was running after the car,
No.
and it was just like walking, but like every step it took, it like got just like appeared closer. I was like, oh man, that's so
Scary.
good.
yeah.
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 I like it. That's fire, dude. Super good. Super good stories, guys.
Yeah. Well done, everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Bravo, bravo.
Bravo, bravo.
Our listeners can maybe finally post something on our social media commenting on their favorite story or favorite part of each story.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
We don't mind. You
Yeah.
can comment. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
All right. Well, now that we're done with our stories, which by the way, excellent work, my dudes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Fabulous job.
Same to you.
We are in October, and so if we wanted to do spooky, of course, and so, but we can't end the episode on a spooky story without talking about, I guess, the main topic, which is like ghosts,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're gonna go into sipping. Andrew, during our 3-second break, you mentioned something about our stories. Can you just repeat that question for us?
Yeah. So, when I was considering how to write my story, I wanted to include biblical elements and truths about human existence. And I had picked up on a few themes that Evan and Ian's story could be potentially presenting. And so I asked them what if they had in mind any biblical passages or teachings or themes they had, written into the fibers of their story or taken inspiration from when they were writing.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Good question.
Very good.
Not one I really thought of while I was reading the story, but it's weird how things kind of get into you, I guess.
Yeah,
Like
show up.
at church this last week, we talked about biblical manhood. And so I guess I kind of see that in my story and how, not necessarily biblical manhood, because there was absence of that. And that's kind of the unfortunate reality of our world in a lot of situations is there's not men in the home doing their part as, a part of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And so my story obviously included like a young boy in a broken family and how that ended kind of in this place of despair, kind of loneliness and isolation, and that unfortunate case for that boy. But I guess the part that you could take out of it to maybe take us to a happier place, I guess, would be that you don't have to stay in that in reality. If you're a part of a broken family or have a father who isn't in the house or is absent, he maybe lives there, but, isn't mentoring and guiding you like he should. We have the ultimate example of what like a biblical man looks like, and that's through Jesus and his guiding through the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
So I guess if I was to talk about that story and people will say why did you do those elements? It may be just to bring up an opportunity to speak to that, because there are a lot of things in life that bring you down and can get you into a place where you feel isolated and alone. But you don't have to stay there. You can ask the Lord to have a relationship with you, and he's really good at doing that. So
Yeah.
yeah. What about you, Ian? Did you
Yeah.
see anything?
I think the thing that I would pull from it is the world's gonna go on without you when you're dead. When you're long gone, the world's gonna keep moving. But you'll be in a better place. Which isn't where I'm going. But
You're not going there, Ian? You're not going
I'm
to
going
the better
there.
place?
I'm going to the better place. the world's gonna go on without you once we're gone. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't do your absolute best while you're here.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There was this example through a podcast that I listened to, and they were talking about heaven, and they're like, that is the goal, right? I mean, we all want to get to heaven. We want to spend eternity with Christ in a place where there's no more tears, no more sorrow. There's only joy and his presence, right? But they talked about how sometimes we focus too much on the end and forget that you can have that relationship with Christ and with others now.
Right.
Like you can literally experience heaven right now.
Right.
Because that relationship is open with Christ, and there are people who love the Lord, and you can have relationships. And the Bible talks about relationships and how you should basically do those things now. Bring heaven now.
Yeah.
Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which requires the tearing
Yeah.
down of any other kingdom. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of things, you said you thought about it kind of during the creation of your story. So I'm curious to see kind of where some of those parts are. I might have some ideas, Andrew, but I'd like to hear it from you.
I kind of want to make you tell me what your ideas are first to see if I successfully communicated the ideas. But I'll go first since you asked, and
No,
then
you go for it. You go for it.
We'll feedback loop it. So
Sure.
I want very much to work on an animated show at some point. Not a cartoon, like a high quality animated, essentially film series, which talks about the reality of death. That's essentially the idea.
Mm.
The name Kyoryo, I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. That is a Japanese word for wages. And that is what is hunting Seito. It is nothing more than what the sum of all he's earned through his choices. And all of these people who have disappeared were hunted as well. And there's nothing you can do, nowhere you can go, and no one you can find to help you with that except for Jesus, which is the whole point of the story and the whole point of the show if I ever made it. The idea is that there's a system of justice. We fall short of it, and therefore we have to pay that price. But God in his mercy sent his son to pay that price for us because we never actually could. And instead of bringing his wrath on us, in his love, he spared us, exhausted his wrath on Christ, and then Christ, being the Son of God, rose again. So now we can be born again through faith in him and salvation. And now we don't have to face wages someday like Seito did. And the other key element, not just the fact that we all are going to die someday and there's nothing we can do to change that fact. It's like one footstep gaining 13 meters, then 27 meters per second. It's constantly coming for you. You can't escape that. Everybody is going to die. And I heard it said recently, until you've dealt with the fact that you are going to die, you're not ready to live. Spoken to a church. Because that's, yeah.
Yep.
And then the other element, which is in one sentence at the end of the story, is that the FID, the first investigation department, mourned Seito's disappearance for one day. And the idea was that so often the world will I will I will take offense at people who say that death is natural. Death is a part of nature now, but it was never the way things were intended to be. And when I talk to someone who has lost someone they loved, there's nothing that feels natural about it. It is just suffering and pain and the opposite of what God intended, which was life in relationship with him, which glorified him. And death is the product of sin. It's nothing more than what sin has earned and merited. And Jesus is the way out of that. The whole point of the story is to be a burden, which points you to the necessity of salvation. And that's through one way, the one truth and the life, which is Christ. So those are the two main ideas that are woven into the story.
Dang.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I was thinking that character that was chasing. I guess it ended up being the same because it's you said wages, so like the
Mhm.
weight of everything that he's done,
Right. Everything
Mhm.
that
the
you've
payment, basically for everything that he's ever done.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking that character, in a biblical sense, once you presented that question, would be basically. I was thinking more of like sin and death,
Right.
Yes.
which had been defeated, but it did take over this individual, your main character, unfortunately, without the saving part.
Mhm.
And there was another interesting part that I noticed was that he couldn't save anybody, and the reliance on how we can't save anybody either. It's the Lord's responsibility, and he wants to save people, and we just present
That
without
free
us presenting the gospel, without presenting the good news to people and living in a way that you have opportunity to speak to people. I feel like, I don't know, we lose some of those options, those opportunities to present so that God, not that he, like, again, he can save whoever he wants.
Yeah.
And sometimes I am like, oh man, if I don't talk to that person, it's because of me, that person's going to go to hell. And I think that's probably a wrong way to look at it, because God saves who he will save. But I still
Yeah.
think that we have a part to play.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, we're sent.
And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, he was trying to do that. He was trying to save people, but he was misguided
Mhm.
in his own transactions. Or, again, transactions works because it's the wages, but
Yeah.
transgressions is what I was trying to say.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
a
interesting.
corpse cannot save another corpse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Facts.
Mhm.
So yeah, all that to say, the Bible talks a lot about spiritual things, and we believe in the biblical narrative of spiritual things. Angels, demons, evil, like, is presented in the Bible and as just like a darkness, as a serpent that prowls for you, a thief that comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And so that's presented in the Bible, but we put our faith and our hope and our trust in Jesus Christ. And when he ascended to heaven, he gave us a gift, and that gift was the Holy Spirit. And so that's the Spirit that we want to invite into our lives. I know that Ian and Andrew and myself, I think that we operate at the best of our ability to operate through the Holy Spirit and the guidance there. And so encourage all of our listeners. I know some of you personally, because you guys talk to me, but encourage you, because you go to church and stuff, is to follow the leading of the Holy Spirit over the spirit of the world right now.
Yeah.
And of your own flesh.
Man, that's the hardest part, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
But any other quick things that you guys want to say at the end here?
I don't think so.
Make sure to
Good
comment
job,
and ask
boys.
questions about our stories on our socials. And that's all I
Yes.
have.
Okay. Well, with all that said, we will see you next time.
Peace.
Bye. Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode of Coffee Time. Don't forget, you can hit us up on all of our social media platforms. That's CoffeaTimeOfficial on all of our podcast platforms, CoffeaTime_official on all of our Instagrams, CoffeaTimeOfficial on YouTube, and CoffeaTimeOfficial on TikTok. And that's Coffee, COFFEA, Time Official. Thanks again, and we hope to see you next time.